Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Alzheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films. Oh, and let me turn this on. All sorts of weird technical problems today. There were rolling blackouts in North Carolina where power was lost, and at the worst time, when it was really, really cold. I think it blipped here at the archive, which set into motion all sorts of weird behavior with computers and scanners, and so we're trying to sort through all that. We're not quite sure what happened, but anyway, so that film was farm footage, and I think I saw a cityscape of Raleigh, so this might be NC State veterinarian farm footage, which is kind of not that far from downtown, but I'm sorry for the branding footage that showed up. Anyways, I forgot my hard drives that have all my pre-recorded stuff, and so I kind of scrapped together some stuff that we have from different places, but regardless, here's let's learn about birds in the winter. Enjoy.
In the fall, when you look up into the sky, you may see a flock of wild geese flying south for the winter. They come from marshlands farther north. If there happens to be water in the area where you live, they may come down to rest during their trip. Or you may come upon some wild ducks resting from their southward trip. They may stay for a day or two, or maybe even for several weeks. These long flights of birds are called migration. Here's another bird that migrates. You can guess its name, a red-winged blackbird. In the fall, blackbirds gather in flocks and fly south, although not as far as the geese and ducks. The robins migrate too, but in a different way. They don't gather in flocks, but each bird works its way southward day by day as it searches for insects and worms. Getting food and not the cold weather is the big problem for birds in winter. But not all birds migrate. The goldfinch, for instance, lives on seeds, which it can find all winter long on weed stems that the snows aren't likely to cover. Starlings don't migrate either. They eat many kinds of food, including scraps that people leave behind. They're noisy, quarrelsome birds, and they aren't liked much by many bird lovers. The English sparrows stay the year round too. Birds don't store food like the squirrels do. See how this blue jay keeps pecking away? Birds must eat very often to give them the energy they need, and usually it's all they can do to find enough food for the moment. Fall is a time you often see unusual birds. This snowy owl is a visitor from the far north. It has come to spend the winter here. It eats small animals, and the hunting here is better in winter than it is in its more northern home. So just before winter is a good time to be watching birds even more closely than before. When winter closes in, you may think all the birds are gone. But watch this. These are sharp-tailed grouse. They're very much at home in the winter snows of some of our western states. And here's a fine example of protective coloring in birds. These are called ptarmigans. They're a kind of grouse. Notice the white feathers. As winter goes on, this bird will become almost all white. Spiny feathers will grow on its toes that will help it walk in the snow. Yes, you can find a lot of bird life in winter, like these English sparrows, which have found bread that someone has put out. The winter birds you see will fall into two groups. One group, like these sparrows, stay all year round. They're called permanent residents. English sparrows are as common in the city streets as they are in the country. The second group includes the snowy owl, whom we met before. They're called winter visitors, since they'll return north in the spring. You can see this owl has caught a rabbit. Notice how well its white feathers blend with the snow. Another example of protective coloring. Do you recognize this bird? Yes, it's a robin. Once in a while you find one in winter that has stayed behind for some unknown reason. See how it has fluffed up its feathers to keep warm. Birds can stand very cold weather. As long as this robin can find food, it will probably live through the winter. Let's look at some of the other permanent residents. This one is a magpie that's found in mountain areas. Magpies are noisy birds that quarrel among themselves as they hunt for food. They're clever birds and usually quite fearless. The jerky flight of horned larks is a familiar sight in the prairies where they live all year round. Every region has its own group of permanent residents. What's this fellow? It's a downy woodpecker. It finds insect eggs and hibernating insects and larvae under the tree bark. The crow is a permanent resident in many parts of the country. This tiny bird is a chickadee. It's a permanent resident of woodland regions. As you can see, it spends a good part of its life upside down. Now, let's look at some of the winter visitors. These are waxwings. They'll move farther north when spring comes. You can find out from a bird book whether they come to your part of the country. Here's a winter visitor from the far north, the tree sparrow. No one knows just why it's called that, because it's almost never found in trees. The junco is another member of the sparrow family. It's a winter visitor, too, and is often called the snowbird. This is the Harris sparrow, still another winter visitor from the far north. Can you see the three Harris sparrows in this picture? This is a good example of how protective coloring makes birds hard to find. Can you see the birds here? There they are. These are redpolls, winter visitors in this particular area. Since different places have different winter visitors, you'll enjoy learning about the ones that visit your neighborhood. Since getting food is the birds' main problem in winter, there's a lot you can do to help them. One way of feeding birds is to put grain in a shallow tray like this on the ground. Be sure to use wood, since the birds' feet might freeze to metal. Put some feed outside the tray, too. Soon your tray will be found by... With a bird book handy, you can learn to recognize these birds, and you'll probably find many kinds you haven't seen before. There are many kinds of feeders you can use for different birds. Of course, the starlings and English sparrows may get most of the food. But here's a titmouse, a tiny permanent resident, at a feeder made of a coconut shell. This is a chickadee at another kind of feeder. Here's a red-breasted nuthatch eating suet, the fatty part of meat. You can tie the suet to a tree without bothering to make a feeder. See how this starling is going after it. You've just seen this bird. It's a red-breasted nuthatch. And look at this chickadee at work on a rib bone. These are evening grosbeaks. Yes, with a pair of binoculars and a feeder, you'll have many wonderful hours. You may attract a cardinal, which loves sunflower seeds. So do the chickadees. But if you want the birds to stay around, be sure to keep your cat inside. So when the snow falls, remember that birds can't live more than a day or so without eating, and that it will be harder than ever for them to find food under the snow. By putting out food for them, you'll help them get through the long winter months.
Oh yeah, keep the cat inside. Boy, you guys just latched on to a bird name, which the YouTube comments kept flagging. We won't discuss it, but yeah, you were drawn to it. You had to mention it in the comments. Some folks asked if I have played the AV Geeks board game yet. We did not. The reason why we were going to do it on Friday, but what happened was winter weather started creeping up, and we ended up, because since we were traveling for the holidays to see my family, we decided to leave early to try to avoid any potential traffic precipitation issues. Thankfully, there weren't any, but sometimes it's brutal. People in North Carolina, at least our part of North Carolina, do not know how to drive when there's frozen precipitation on the road, and it can be pretty bad. There's also flickering power, flickering internet, so I pre-recorded a show, and you people delighted in the fact that I had my pre-shower hair, which is all puffy. And my favorite description was that it was heat miser hair, which, yes, I 100% strive towards having heat miser hair, and we'll work on that in 2023. Anyways, so we will try to play the game this upcoming, towards the end of this week, because it's an actual game, and we're excited to show you and read you the cards and all that stuff. So let's see, what do we got set up? Got set up Anatomy of Life on the scanner. Enjoy.
The Science Screen Report, bringing you each month the latest discoveries, developments, and applications, science, engineering, and medicine made to help solve the problems of modern life. Man has long wondered if he is alone in the universe. Today, the search for other forms of life and even civilizations beyond the Earth is becoming. Space probes have been launched to sun Mars, and similar missions have been planned to probe Saturn's moon, Titan. The Pioneer spacecraft traveling beyond the solar system carry greetings to hypothetical extraterrestrial life. Simultaneously, the world's radio astronomers are scanning the universe, seeking evidence of possible civilizations far out in space. Researchers hypothesize that communicating civilizations are an eventual consequence of evolution. To better understand living things on Earth and the possible discovery of life forms beyond our planet, this issue of the Science Screen Report is an introduction to the anatomy of life as we identify it today. We see living things around us every day. But which characteristics do scientists use to actually define life? For example, is something alive because it moves, like these microscopic paramecia? There is movement on a soap bubble, partly because of surface tension, but a bubble is not alive. Gravity or the tides can move oil over water, but oil is not alive. Or one liquid may diffuse through another, but neither is this a living system. Do growth and reproduction define life? The offspring of this stentor is growing directly out of the parent during the process of budding, a type of sexual reproduction. But growth and reproduction are subtle concepts. These crystals grow, but they are not life as biologists define it. Or consider a very advanced computer equipped with machine tools and mining equipment, which might be programmed to grow and even build a copy of itself. Would such a self-replicating machine be truly alive? Can life be defined in terms of its biochemistry? Studies have sought to define the chemical nature of life as we recognize it on Earth. This film animation suggests how all Earth life is composed of molecules, some as simple as water. Biochemists have determined that on Earth, the double helix spiral molecule DNA holds the genetic code of the heredity pattern of future generations. This DNA control process, via self-replication, is similar in all forms of life. Here, documentary microphotography shows mitosis cellular reproduction by DNA, replicating the DNA molecules. But neither is this universal. For example, this bacteriophage is parasitic upon DNA of other life for its replication. Is a basic feature of life the ability to collect and store energy? Plants do this through photosynthesis. Most animals, like this amoeba shown ingesting a stentor, gather energy by capturing other living organisms, digesting them, and assimilating the nutrients they contain. Many feeding techniques have evolved. This rotifer uses its whirling cilia to bring in food and a grinding mechanism to tear it apart. The dragonfly larvae has a specialized mouth to capture and ingest its prey. Tentacles and stinging cells called nematocysts are used by the hydra to paralyze this small shrimp. Is water fundamental to life as we know it? Life thrives when water is present. But take away water, and in many cases you take away life. Some organisms, like shrimp, become immobile even before they become dehydrated and the metabolic activities cease. Dehydration here is proceeding from left to right. However, other life forms can survive drastic changes in the availability of water. Rotifers like this one have adapted to survive with a minimum of moisture. Many roundworms, like rotifers, can also survive a drastic loss of water in a dried-up, resistant state. Can life, therefore, be defined by limiting environmental factors? The microscopic water bear, often found in the thin layer of water covering mosses, can also survive when over 95% of its body water is removed. In addition, it has been known to survive at temperatures from near absolute zero to above 100 degrees Celsius, and when exposed to high-intensity radiation. Bacteria, the microscopic unicellular organisms which exhibit both plant and animal characteristics, also can survive many environmental extremes. Some can live in concentrated salt solutions, others endure extreme cold, and still other varieties thrive in hot springs at 90 degrees Celsius. Strains of bacteria found in the Antarctic, which had been dormant for at least 10,000 years, have resumed their life activities when exposed to air and then been grown in active colonies. Could life, as we know it, exist on other planets, such as Mars? Life forms there would be exposed to environmental conditions such as temperatures reaching 50 degrees Celsius, a minimum of water, and exposure to ultraviolet radiation. Moreover, if Mars is currently passing through an ice age, as some scientists believe, one hypothesis is that life forms might be dormant, waiting for the long winter to end before they resume their life processes. Or a subsurface permafrost layer of the planet may hold ancient or living organisms deep within it. In either case, the first life-seeking missions to Mars have not been equipped to detect such hidden or dormant life forms. In search of the beginnings of life, scientists have simulated conditions that may have existed on Earth billions of years ago. No atmospheric oxygen, simple inorganic and organic compounds such as methane and carbon dioxide and water, and energy including heat and ultraviolet radiation. The products of such tests have included amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, and nucleic acids, the constituents of DNA. What then defines life? Life cannot be explained in terms of a simple life function, but as an intricate balance of many life processes, each one unique and basic in sustaining a living organism. Perhaps the basic characteristic of life is its ability to evolve, to adapt, diversify, and survive in a wide and ever-changing variety of forms. Seeking life beyond the Earth is another important step along the road that man has traveled since his beginnings, looking for his place in the universe.
Leader lady at the very end. So that was a Screen Science Digest, I believe. What do they call it? I always forget. Oh no, I'm combining two things. So it's a Science Screen Report, which is very similar to the Screen News Digest, which Hearst did. And this one was interesting because it didn't have a little bumper at the beginning and the end for whatever corporation, engineering, chemical, power plant, foundry that sponsored it. So this is what this looks like when you don't have those bumpers on the beginning and the end. But it proved to be very psychedelic. I think we could have busted out some early Pink Floyd and just had a good old time watching that. Keeping in the concept of NASA and space exploration and what is life, here's a NASA short called Moments in History. Didn't say which ones, but yeah, enjoy.
April 9, 1963. President Kennedy, empowered by an act of Congress, is to proclaim Sir Winston Churchill an honorary citizen of the United States. The ceremony will take place in the Rose Garden of the White House in Washington, D.C. By means of the relay communication satellite, this memorable event will be instantly televised to Sir Winston's home in London and viewers throughout Europe. Preparations to transmit and receive this historic broadcast had begun early in the day. In the center of Italy, 70 miles to the east of Rome, is the valley of Fucino.
Pronto? Questa è la stazione del telespazio del Fucino.
Over the Alps in France, at the edge of Normandy, is the village of Plumeur-Baudou.
Plumeur-Baudou, France. Nous sommes prêts.
Across the channel at the south tip of England is Goonhilly Downs in Cornwall.
Goonhilly, England. Ready here.
The hours go by. In Europe, the stations check and recheck their equipment. In the United States, near Andover, Maine, at Nutley, New Jersey, at the Goddard Space Flight Center near Washington, and in New York, other links in the relay network are standing by to carry the special broadcast scheduled for 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, an hour internationally designated in Greenwich time as 2000 Zulu.
At the mark, the time will be 1951 Zulu. Stand by. Mark.
This is Andover, Maine. Communications are ready.
Nutley, New Jersey, standing by and ready.
Stand by. Kill film and take one.
You have just seen films of the launch of a relay communication satellite on December 13th, 1962. This was followed by animation which showed how this National Aeronautics and Space Administration satellite is used to retransmit signals across the Atlantic. In the past 5 months, Relay has orbited the Earth exactly 909 times. It has transmitted two-way telephone calls, high-speed data, facsimile, and teletype communications between the United States, South America, and Europe. Relay has also carried a number of television programs on a one-way path from Europe to North America and from North America to Europe. Relay was built by RCA for the National Aeronautic and Space Administration and is a project of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. At Goddard, the relay broadcasts are directed by a Communications Satellite Operations Center.
Now, I'd like the tour group to pay particular attention to the activity in this room. This is a Communications Satellite Operations Center. It's known as ComSoc. The gentlemen you see at work are spacecraft controllers. They're in charge of the relay project. There on the side, you'll note the spacecraft status board. It shows that relay has been commanded to monitor its systems and report on its operating condition.
How much more time is there?
Well, not very long. Andover is ready. So are England, France, and Italy. Nutley's taking Class 2 data right now.
Comstock, this is ComCon. Telemetry looks okay here.
At the mark. The time will be 1954 Zulu. Stand by. Mark.
ComCon, this is ComSoc. Switch transponder number 2 on.
The order has been sent to relay to turn on one of its 2 receiver transmitters. After this transponder is reported in a go condition, the final step is for the Andover station to transmit TV to Goonhilly Downs in England. Well, I see they're getting ready for the final check. Let's see how it goes.
Comstock, this is ComCon. Comstock, this is ComCon.
At Nutley, New Jersey, receiving instructions from the Goddard Space Center is Relay Communications Control, known in short as ComCon. ComCon is housed in 2 mobile trailers.
Telemetry, what's the status of the Class 1 telemetry data at this time?
Class 1 telemetry data appears to be normal.
Recording cameras ready. Receiver ready.
This is ComCon. All systems are go.
And now from Andover, Maine, inside a protective dome, the giant horn of the American Telephone and Telegraph Company beams the program to Relay.
Comstock, this is Command. Roger. Receiving test pattern from Washington. We will use it for a transmission test.
In just 60 seconds, if all goes well, Relay will retransmit the signals back down to Earth, and an historic event will have begun.
At the mark. Time will be 1959 Zulu. Stand by. Mark.
Hello, this is Tom Hill. Systems are checking out okay. Your test patterns are safe interaction. This is Tom Hill. I'm still standing by.
20 seconds. Mark.
We have a red light on transponder AGC.
Picture's still coming over.
Roger. Disregard the no-go. Reception is okay.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
We are in the Rose Garden of the White House, just outside the president's office. It was raining an hour ago hard. The grounds are damp. As someone said, this is as it should be, typically British weather for Sir Winston's ceremony. It's a mixed honor guard, United States Marines, and a British Marine. Here's the president. Randolph Churchill on the right, Ambassador Ormsby Gord on the president's other flank.
Com Hill, how's your reception?
Hello, Comstock. Hello, Comstock. Reception very good. Program going over BBC and Eurovision.
Ladies and gentlemen, members of the Congress, members of the Cabinet, His Excellency, the British Ambassador, ambassadors of the Commonwealth, old friends of Sir Winston, led by Mr. Baruch, ladies and gentlemen. We gather today at a moment unique in the history of the United States. This is the first time that the United States Congress has solemnly resolved that the President of the United States shall proclaim an honorary citizenship for the citizen of another country. In enjoining me to perform this happy duty, the Congress gives Sir Winston Churchill a distinction shared only with the Marquis de Lafayette. In proclaiming him an honorary citizen, I only propose a formal recognition of the place he has long since won in the history of freedom and in the affections of my, and now his, fellow countrymen. Whenever and wherever tyranny threatened, he has always championed liberty. Facing firmly towards the future, he has never forgotten the past. Serving 6 monarchs of his native Great Britain, he has served all men's freedom and dignity. In the dark days and darker nights when England stood alone, and most men, save Englishmen, despaired of England's life, he mobilized the English language and sent it into battle. The incandescent quality of his words illuminated the courage of his countrymen. Indifferent himself to danger, he wept past the servant of the future. Now therefore I, John F. Kennedy, President of the United States of America, under the authority contained in an act of the 88th Congress, do hereby declare Sir Winston Churchill an honorary citizen of the United States of America. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the United States of America to be affixed. Done at the city of Washington, this 9th day of April, in the year of our Lord, 1963, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 187th.
Hello, ComSoc. Comhill calling. Picture and sound both okay. BBC states clearest ever seen via transatlantic relay. Sir Winston observed the program at his London home and was deeply moved.
Cool. Where am I? Yeah, that was kind of interesting to see early satellite comlink behind the scenes. I've been to Goddard Space Center. There was during a time when I was digitizing a bunch of stuff for NASA on behalf of the Internet Archive, and so we went there to kind of see what they had, and they basically said, "Oh, we've sent everything to National Archives," but I got to see kind of the press room where they kind of do whenever they talk about satellite stuff. I got to see this really cool representation of the Earth based on satellite data that was being generated live, and this was, God, this is so many years. This is like 15 years ago, 18 years ago. It was some time ago. But yeah, it was pretty great. The thing that struck me is how much Greenbelt Goddard Space Center looked like a community college campus. It was really, the buildings were very nondescript. Not as exciting as like the vehicle assembly building at the Kennedy Space Center, but yeah, what are you going to do? Anyways, got another film on the scanner. I'm going to try to work hard to get to do more stuff live off of, go to the back, pull something off the shelf, and show it to you. Just as a way to kind of keep going back and showing you new things as opposed to kind of using the stuff that we've already digitized. Oh, and also, Kevin, thank you so much for the coffee. Caffeine is very much needed today, so thank you. All right, so here is safety for a new employee, and I think this is a kinescope. Some of you in the comments can explain what kinescope means to other people. Enjoy.
This is the story of Joe Bugbrain's first day on the job. And last. Of course, he's a fictitious character. He has to be with a name like Joe Bugbrain. And this is a fictional story. No American worker is foolish enough to commit over 36 safety violations in one day. Several, maybe, but dozens, no. And anyone who did would end the day in a hospital or the morgue, if he wasn't fired first. Industrial carelessness cost industry and workers around $30 billion a year. Accidents cause about 2 million injuries every year. They kill about 10,000 workers every year. And many of these victims are innocent. They are victims of other workers' carelessness. Here's what's true about our story. If you obey rules of safety, you can have a long, healthy, and rewarding career. If you don't obey them, at least one of these things will happen to you. You'll be hurt or killed, you'll lose the respect of your coworkers, or you'll be fired. Well, here's Joe getting ready for his first day of work. He complains that the safety shoes issued to him are uncomfortable, too stiff. So he's putting on some old shoes of his own. Very foolish. Safety shoes protect the feet with their reinforced toes and their metatarsal guard. If Joe would wear his safety shoes, they'd be broken in within a couple of days. They'd be as comfortable as his old shoes and a whole lot safer. Uh-oh. Now he's putting his safety glasses into his pocket. But he's not taking off his ring. He's got it mixed up. He should wear the glasses and take off the ring. Safety glasses protect you from flying pieces of metal, wood, rock, concrete, or other material which could put out your eye. Rings seem to have a way of always finding themselves between hammers and the tools being struck. Fingers have been lost because rings cut off the circulation to swollen, smashed hands. And if a machine is electrically alive, your ring can create an arc and actually weld you to it. An interesting experience. If you told Joe he was thick-headed, he'd take it as an insult. But only a thickhead would scorn the use of his hard hat. Joe's thick head surely doesn't impress his foreman. But the foreman has no idea yet just how dumb Joe Bugbrain is. Of course, first impressions tell a lot, and Joe's starting out on the wrong foot. At least Joe's a willing worker. Look at him work that forklift. Well, he may be willing, but he's also sloppy and careless. Carrying a pallet that far out on the forks is dangerous. Not only can lifting a load like that damage the forks, but it also changes the center of gravity, which could cause the fork truck to tip over. Always make sure that the load is placed all the way back on the forks and properly supported. If the load is unbalanced, special care must be used for a safe and controlled lift. And And when you're stacking pallets, you should always know the maximum number of pallets that may be placed on top of one another. This number varies, and it will usually be marked on the sides of the boxes being stacked. If it's not, ask your supervisor. And never drive around with a load in a raised position. He's forgotten something important, though. Those forks can cause serious injury when they're left in a raised position or sticking out into an aisleway. It's a good thing this fellow's alert and conscientious. He knows that the forks can be lowered even when the engine's off, and he makes sure the area is clear before he lowers them. Now Joe finishes off the job. But lifting heavy cartons that way could finish off his back or his stomach muscles. He should lift with his legs, like his coworker. Then he'd be less likely to hurt his back or get a hernia or have cartons drop on his unprotected feet. And less likely to cause his foreman to worry about him. This is a very dangerous little tool. See those edges jutting out at the top? They can break off like shrapnel from a hand grenade and put out an eye. Well, finally. But when there's a real strong chance of flying debris, you should wear special protective goggles or a grinding shield, not ordinary safety glasses. And a job like this calls for work gloves. Fortunately, a co-worker warns Joe about mushroom tools and tells him to dress up the chisel first. Now let's watch Joe flirt with death or very serious injury as he chooses the wrong tool for the job. First, he selects a tool that's been tagged. A tag tool should never be used. There's something wrong with it, and it needs to be fixed. He's risking a rude shock, an electric one, by using a tool without a ground. As a general rule, every power plug should have 3 prongs. The third prong is a ground. If the plug doesn't have 3 prongs, don't use it. The only exceptions are some of the newer, largely plastic power tools. Although such tools are less durable, double insulated tools are insulated by the plastic, so they don't need a ground. His coworker really is a nice person, although Joe may not feel that way. That's better. However, for the best protection, a ground fault circuit interrupter is recommended whenever using electrical tools. Even when properly grounded, a power tool can short out or malfunction. If this one does, Joe has no room to get out of the way. This portable grinder doesn't care what it grinds, metal, wood, or flesh. It's a spirited tool that likes to lurch out of control when it encounters a sharp change in the plane of the surface it's grinding. And it should never be used without proper eye protection. You can imagine how Joe's coworkers are beginning to react to him. Joe's gotten the word. For a job like this, use a bench grinder. Joe often does the right thing, but at the wrong time. Now is not the time for work gloves. They can easily get caught in a piece of machinery. Now he's using the right tool, but the wrong way. And Joe's still not wearing proper eye protection. That protective shield should be tilted down. Otherwise, it's not protective at all. Joe obviously needs all the protection he can get. His sloppy housekeeping is a further danger to him. He could slip on a tool like that. This tool doesn't even belong in the workplace, let alone on the floor. Adjustable wrenches can lose their grip. Use a box wrench or an open-end wrench. Luckily for Joe, he seems to have completed this job without hurting himself or someone else. All he has to do is unplug the grinder. Of course, he forgets, and someone has to tell him that idle power tools should be unplugged. But you should never unplug something by pulling on the cord. Always take hold of the plug, like this. Because it's his first day on the job, Joe is naturally curious about the other work that's done here. In this instance, too curious. A welder wears that special protective shield for a purpose. Without it, staring at a welding flash is like staring at the sun. And as you get closer, it gets even worse. It might be interesting now, but by tomorrow, Joe will probably see things differently. Joe has worked hard and is taking a break, but that puddle could take a break, too, of Joe's ankle or leg. Fortunately for Joe, it was a shallow puddle. You can't gauge the depth of a puddle just by glancing at it. If Joe had stepped in this puddle, he would have gotten hurt. Walk around puddles and always be alert for any unmarked tripping hazards. Joe has picked a poor place to enjoy a breather. One of those steel frames could fall on him. Always steer clear of piles or stacks of heavy material that could fall down on you. And never smoke around oil drums or other flammable material. Break's over, but Joe will soon be back. His carelessness is about to start a fire. If Joe knew where the fire extinguishers were located, he'd be a lot more help. He's found one. But because he hadn't familiarized himself with their types, he's chosen the wrong kind for a wood fire. Always check out the fire extinguishers in your workplace so that you know where they are and which is which. And if you arrive at the scene of trouble but aren't really needed, stay out of the way. No one has had time to notice that stray ember right next to Joe's foot. Luckily for Joe, his coworker used his head and reacted quickly. If your clothes catch fire when the proper type of extinguisher is not available, roll over on the ground. The ground will suffocate the fire. Fortunately for Joe, his coworkers, and the company, help arrived with the right kind of extinguishers. But it won't do any good next time if Joe puts it back where it was. It's empty. Never put a spent fire extinguisher back in its place. Ask your supervisor where to take it for refilling. Well, he did it anyway. Never rehang an empty extinguisher. Of course, knowing Joe, he's probably more concerned with changing his barbecued pants. Now let's see how Joe fouls up his next assignment. He's been asked to take these cylinders to another location. They're properly secured, so he has to untie them first. Cylinders should always be secured to a strong stationary object, as these are. Bottles should be rolled in the upright position. They should never be lifted. Joe always seems to make work harder rather than easier for himself. A bottle cart would provide better protection for the bottle, Joe's feet, and his back. These cylinders can explode. They should never be handled roughly. They should never be laid on their side. And a cylinder whose pressure regulator has been removed should always be capped. And, not surprisingly, Joe forgot to secure the cylinders. Joe is sure getting known around his new workplace, known as the man nobody else wants to work with. The foreman's noticed him, too. The day's nearly over, but Joe has time to botch one more job, repairing that flashing. But he may never reach the flashing because he hasn't inspected the ladder. If a ladder laid like this will bear your weight, it should also bear your weight when it's upright. And check for splinters, for cracked, missing, or loose rungs. Joe's ladder happens to be sound, but not when placed like that. When you place a ladder, always follow this simple rule. The distance from the base of the wall to the base of the ladder should be roughly 1/4 the working length of the ladder. For example, if the working length is 20 feet, the base of the ladder should be 5 feet from the base of the wall. Climbing a ladder that's not secured at the top is risky. Joe should have asked someone to hold the ladder for him while he climbed up and secured it. Well, this time he was lucky. Here comes some help. The foreman has something to say to Joe, but he wants him to secure the ladder first. Joe shouldn't leave that toolbox on the roof ledge either. Joe is clearly a dangerous man, a liability to his company, his co-workers, and himself. The foreman is doing his job. He's also doing Joe a favor. He's firing Joe before Joe hurts or kills himself or someone else. And just in time. In real life, of course, Joe wouldn't have lasted even this long. He'd be one of those statistics we showed you at the beginning. He'd be hurt or dead. So, although Joe doesn't understand it, our story has a happy ending. Joe Bugbrain is still alive and healthy. But for his own sake, and ours, let's hope he can find a nice, safe office job somewhere.
Check that gear in a minute, so don't touch anything, okay? from there. Now! Hey! Turn it over!
What if it bumped that control by accident? You'd be mincemeat by now. What have I told you? You don't work on equipment when the engine's running.
Well, I told him not to touch anything. All right, I guess I wasn't thinking.
You weren't thinking? You mean you'll work on engines and machinery and not think of your own personal safety? Here. Shake hands with danger.
Shake hands with danger. Meet a man you ought to know. I used to laugh at safety. Now they call me Three-Fingered Joe. I was young and feisty, never did things by the book. Just let me get my toolbox and I'll take myself a look. I climbed up on a dozier with my mechanic's pride. Said, you can keep it running, friend, while I poke around inside. Shake hands with danger, meet a guy you ought to know. I used to laugh at safety, now they call me Three-Fingered Joe. Although I learned a lesson, I forgot it soon enough. The nicks and burns and scratches showed the young ones I was tough. Till another morning I was grinding on some steel. My other hand got careless and fed my skin into the wheel. Shake hands with danger, step right up and say hello. Grinding wheels and metal are what made me Three-Fingered Joe. I've seen mechanics burning and I've seen them take a fall just to save themselves a minute. I've seen them lose it all. I've watched them courting trouble, seen them take a chance and lose. They get careless for a moment and spend a lifetime with the blues. Shake hands with some friends I used to know. Compared to them, I'm lucky to be just Three-Fingered Joe.
Both named Joe. Of course I'm going to show that. So now we know that Three Finger Joe's last name is Bugbrain. And I can't remember who was in the comments. It was like, not another workplace safety film. Yes. They're out there. I have many, many, many. Because obviously they were made because of insurance issues and workman's comp, and because we tend to make machines and create industrial processes which are really, really hazardous for people. So that's why so many of these exist. Thanks for tuning in today. It was nice to be back live. And we'll be back again tomorrow. Everybody have a great rest of your Tuesday. It feels really weird since I wasn't live yesterday. I don't really know what day it is. I'm guessing it's Tuesday. But join us soon. As always, please rewind. Love each other, including yourself. And we will see you tomorrow. Everybody take care.